It was Dame time in overtime, and sometimes there's just nothing you can do about that. Now, there was something the Kings could have done about it, and that was make free throws. And that's really what makes this one sting, missing three out of the last four free throws. And we knew at some point in this season, the Kings being the worst free throw shooting team in the league would come back and, it would cost us a game. What I didn't expect is that it would be Malik Monk missing two of them and then Fox missing one of them, like our most clutch free throw shooter one of our most clutch free throw shooters and then our best free throw shooter missing the free throws. And that, it sucks. It stings. And you have Giannis going 3 for 4 at the end of the fourth. But we can't let that take away from how well the Kings played because this was the Kings team that we've been waiting for. This was the type of performance that we've been asking for because just time after time this season, it's been blowout after blowout after blowout. And it's like, where's the fight in the losses? And this was a game with a lot of fight. Now, I wish they just would have lost it in regulation, but no, we have to go to overtime and make it sting a little bit more. But what else is it? What's another thing after all those blowout losses that we've kept saying? And we kept saying it's just one loss. And that's the same thing that this is. We haven't beaten Milwaukee since 2016. We can be just fine without this win in Milwaukee. I would much rather take the Kings having this kind of performance and being able to build off it into the future and the rest of the season than just taking one win. And of course, it would have been great to just have both. But sometimes the Kings and the NBA and just everything can be cruel sometimes. But there were just so many positives to take away from this game. Kevin Huerter was back in the starting lineup after missing the last game, which I'm really happy about because even if he's not scoring, he's much better than Chris Duarte. And, I was hoping that Chris Duarte could give us more than he did, but he just hasn't been able to. And so it's good to have Huerter back in the starting lineup because we all know that the Kings ceiling with this roster and when they play their best is when Kevin Huerter's out there and when he's making shots. And he was making them today. He had a really good game. And I think what I really liked about it was he didn't start out on fire. Like he made one pretty early, but he started like 1 for 3 from three. But it was that he was getting himself going by making really good cuts to the basket, finishing around the rim. Like he even missed his first layup that he was trying to make over Brook Lopez. And Brook Lopez is tough. He was affecting a lot of shots around the rim, but Huerter kept going, made his next one, and was able to get a lot going in the mid-range and around the rim, little floaters. And then he was able to also get himself in the game on the defensive side of the ball, getting his hands in the passing lanes, getting a steal, getting on the glass. He had 10 defensive rebounds. When you look at the rest of the starters, a little unfair to Keegan Murray, who went out at halftime with an injury. We'll talk about that. But you have Fox with 1 rebound, Keegan with 1 rebound, Barnes with 1 rebound. Sabonis is an amazing rebounder, but he can't do it himself. You need at least one other guy to step up in the rebounding department. So Huerter did a really good job there. And then in that second half, and especially after the Mike Brown ejection, he injected life into the team. Mike Brown obviously getting extremely mad, rightfully so, because De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk couldn't get any calls going inside where you had Giannis, as we all know, getting all the calls whenever he went to the rim. All right, I just got done recording this, right? And I go on Twitter, and immediately, of course, I see the Mike Brown rant. And I had to come back and talk about that because that was just, it was so amazing. And actually, I'm probably just going to put this at the near the start because just absolute cinema. And the way Mike Brown, he pulls out the laptop and he edited together. Maybe it was, someone else who edited it for him, but during the time he, got kicked out to that press conference. He took the time to edit a video together to show this. I love the preparation, but in terms of what he was actually talking about, he wasn't just doing the Darko, which is just yell about how the refs suck. Um, he was actually, a little more. He was prepared because he got kicked out, so he had time to really prepare his thoughts. And so he was talking about the Malik Monk uh, foul call that got reversed on a challenge, where Brook Lopez has his forearm out and kind of like pushes into Monk, saying that Sabonis gets called for that all the time, and they say you have to go vertical with both hands, which is exactly what everyone has been told, right? And that's why it was so shocking that it got overturned. And that's why the officiating has just, in the NBA, it just sucks right now. It's inconsistencies like that of different officiating crews interpreting rules differently when everyone's been told you can't have your forearm there. Now, maybe should you be able to have your forearm there? That's a different discussion, but it's about the consistency of now the refs are telling people that you can't have or that you can have it there. When the previous 38 games of the season, the forearm being down there has been a foul. And him also talking about the incidental contact on the Dame threes, which, I totally agree with. And why I was getting so annoyed at Dame getting 3 free throws and Fox not getting 3 free throws, because it's a lot different when you just have your hand barely touching a guy's hip, not pushing him at all, and him just rising up to foul bait, versus Fox just stepping in and shooting a 3 and getting hit on the arm and somehow not getting the call. But I thought it was a really well put together rant by Mike Brown, not the just I'm gonna yell. It was more put together and more in a way of this is what they need to do better, as opposed to he was like, it's okay if you miss some calls, you just got to be consistent. And so just an all-time rant by Mike Brown. Amazing. And Mike Brown kind of getting out onto the court, confronting the ref, and I loved that. The Kings were, I think, down 10 at that point. They'd been down 12, was maybe the biggest lead that Milwaukee had. And that was in the fourth quarter, and the Kings absolutely responded. Huerter with massive shots, and he had that one shot in overtime, and that one felt like a dagger, but turns out it wasn't. But to have him back and playing well is huge, because when you look at all of the Kings lineups and their ratings, the Kings starting lineup, the defense isn't great, and if you slot Duarte into that lineup, that starting lineup, the defensive rating gets a lot better. There's no doubt. But the offensive rating absolutely plummets, and the net rating is not nearly as good. And so hopefully this is the start of something that Kevin Huerter can build on, because we need him to not necessarily be playing like this, because that was, something else. That was an amazing game. And he had a similar game against Milwaukee last season. But we just need him to be able to continue to contribute on the defensive end of the floor, rebound the basketball, make smart cuts, take open shots when they're given to him, and continue to move without the basketball and create space for others. The Kings had the lead or were very close, like either tied or just down a few, within 1 or 2 possessions for most of the game. And allowing 143 points, 128 in regulation, that doesn't sound great, obviously. And it definitely isn't, but you have to consider how the Bucks shot from 3-point range and just how they shot overall. I thought the Kings did a solid job defensively of trying to build that wall against Giannis, trying to make others beat them. I thought early on they let Dame get too many open shots. He had like 3 wide open threes, but past that, I thought they did a really good job. And some of the open shots, especially from a guy like Pat Connaughton or Brook Lopez, like they're good 3-point shooters, but sometimes you have to live with them when you're going up against a team with Giannis and Dame on it. There's no Chris Middleton, but then you have Bobby Portis coming in and hitting every single contested shot. He was going right at Barnes and just fading away right over him, knocking down everything. I think he started 9 for 9 from the field, ended 9 for 11 with 22. But the Kings were able to fight back, and they were able to keep up offensively. And that was without Keegan having, he didn't have a particularly good first half. He was 2 for 9, 0 for 2 from 3. And I wrote in my notes, I said, we need Keegan to get going in the second half. I wrote this at halftime. We need him to get going in the second half to really have a shot to win this game. And he didn't even come back out for the second half because he has a hip injury. I don't know anything else about that. But we were able to actually stay in the game without him. And I think the most impressive part was being able to stay in the game without hitting our threes, because the Bucks came out, knocked down some threes. We just were missing wide open shot after wide open shot in that third quarter. Overall, we shot well from three, 17 for 41, which is only about 5% lower than the Bucks did. But even when in that span of time in the third quarter where we weren't knocking down the three, that's usually where things would just fall apart. But we were able to stay in the game, and it was through really good backdoor cuts. The cutting was amazing. Sasha Vezenkov, who came in because Keegan was out, so he was the, filling the Lyles role off the bench. He played 6 minutes, and, he came out and he missed 2 pretty open threes, which isn't great, but he still made an impact by cutting to the basket. Ended up getting 4 points off of those cuts inside. Huerter was doing a really good job of cutting to the basket. Barnes was as well. And I thought Sasha had a really good game defensively. And him and Domas in that third quarter were they were doing a really good job of limiting Giannis. And the Kings' game plan was interesting in terms of guarding Giannis, because they came out and they put Domas on him. And I think it's pretty clear that Domas is the best defender for Giannis on this team and can do the best job of trying to limit him. But the worry there is obviously the foul trouble that comes with it. But Sabonis did a really good job of staying out of foul trouble. And then the Kings had a short rotation, an 8-man rotation. Obviously, it looks, if you look at the box score, it looks like a 9-man because Sasha got those minutes. But that was only because of the Keegan injury. And so tightening up the rotation, I mean, it's probably not sustainable throughout an entire regular season. But right now, Mike Brown went with the guys that he trusted. And I mean, those 8 guys in obviously the starting 5 plus Monk, Len, and Lyles off the bench, those are the 8 guys that can be trusted the most. And I think Sasha has shown at times this season that he could also be a guy that is trusted in the rotation, but the problem is his position is just already filled with Lyles off the bench. But when Lyles slides into that starting unit for the Keegan injury, Sasha can come in and make an impact. And the Kings went to a double big lineup with Alex Len and Sabonis in there. Sabonis continued to be the primary defender on Giannis, but then you had Alex Len to be there to build that wall. And I don't think it was ever really too successful in terms of limiting Giannis. Like, I don't think Len being the helper was ever really the deterrent. And there's one play where Len helps over on the strong side and they just kick it out to Bobby Portis, who laces a 3. And so it was, it's interesting. And I'm definitely not opposed to it. Like, I don't think it was necessarily a bad idea. And I do think it's something we could use going forward, depending on matchups. And Len came out. He's no Brook Lopez. And that's kind of what we were asking him to be in that scenario where Domas is the Giannis. And I think that actually is a pretty good parallel, especially, just with the roles offensively. But Alex Len just isn't the 3-point shooter that Brook Lopez is. He did come in and take a quick corner 3, and I think that was him trying to go 2 for 1. And we know he can shoot it, but he's just not a great 3-point shooter. But he came in and took that quick 3, and we didn't get the ball back because the rebound took so long that it took time off the clock. I mean, that's just a problem with the Kings. Twice in this game, they tried to go 2 for 1. And one time they didn't get the second opportunity, and one time they just took two bad shots. And the Kings' late quarter execution just been horrible this season. But more on Alex Len. Usually he's really good at not fouling, but he had a bit of trouble in this one. Came in, fouled Giannis on, like, I think Giannis was going to take a little push shot or floater. Just an unnecessary foul. Fouling him kind of away from the basket is not something you want to do. And then he fouled, I think it was maybe Pat Connaughton going to the rim, where usually Alex Len is going to go straight up, but he went into him, fouled him. Then he fouled Giannis again on a jump shot. So he's just got to be more disciplined, which is normally not something I say about Alex Len. But I think him coming in, trying to fill a different role, trying to guard Giannis probably threw him off a bit. But he's just got to be more disciplined in those situations. And in the second quarter, the Bucks got into the penalty very, very early. And I didn't think the first half was poorly officiated. I know other Kings fans didn't feel the same way, but I didn't really have a problem with the officiating in the first half, other than the challenge that somehow the Bucks won, where Brook Lopez clearly fouled Monk. I don't know how they overturned that. It was really the third quarter where I thought the officiating just got horrible, where Monk and Fox couldn't buy a foul going inside. And also, somehow, Monk gets a foul overturned. Oh, wait. No, that was the one I was talking about. At the end of the second quarter, wasn't it? Yeah. Where Monk is going inside. And Brook Lopez clearly sticks his arm out into him. Somehow gets it overturned. And yeah, Fox and Monk just could not really get many foul calls going to the rim compared to what Giannis was getting for obviously the, a lot lighter contact with Giannis just going straight into guys. And that's obviously why Mike Brown was pissed and got ejected. But Mike Brown was just trying to fire up the team, and it absolutely worked. The Kings responded, and when it looked like we were going to, lose kind of contact with the Bucks, we turned it around at that point. In that fourth quarter, it was the Huerter and Cam Payne show. Cam Payne comes in, hits 3 for 4 from 3. And that's the kind of thing I was talking about, where you just can't expect that to always happen. That's not really on the Kings defense. Like, we know Cam Payne can do that, but he's definitely not going to do that consistently. But this just happened to be one of those games where he got hot. So it was Huerter and Payne going back and forth. But then Huerter kept going. Lyles hitting a 3. Finally, we started getting some stops, and Domas and Monk were getting inside. But it looked like, we got it within a 4-point game, and it kind of looked like we were going to throw it away. We had a few bad turnovers in the fourth. Overall, did a really good job of taking care of the basketball in this game. 9 turnovers in an overtime game. It's really good. There were some crucial ones in the fourth and overtime. We had 2 in overtime, and both of those moments, well, in overtime, it was kind of us throwing the game away a bit, throwing away an opportunity to really put it away. And in the fourth, it just looked like we were kind of throwing away the opportunity to come back in the game, but we were able to get enough stops. Sabonis got elbowed in the face, somehow got called for the foul, even though it was in wide open space, and it was just a clear elbow to the face. I don't know. I don't know what the refs are looking at. But we challenged it and won, so I guess it's fine. But we didn't have a team foul until we started intentionally fouling at the end of the fourth. So I think Mike Brown getting mad worked on the refs. But Fox, he had kind of an up and down game, went 12 for 26 with 32 points. The Kings as a whole were not great from the mid-range and floater area. Like, Keegan was missing some, Monk was missing some floaters, especially early on, and it was kind of the 3-point shot that kept us in it. But then when the 3 wasn't falling, that's when the Kings got to those areas, especially when the Bucks went zone. That's when we kind of got to the mid-range areas. Barnes hit a few middies. I talked about Huerter doing that. Monk also getting to those areas. But Fox was he wasn't really hitting the middies the entire game. Not like maybe we're used to. And, like we're spoiled because he normally just is automatic. And he missed that really open one in the fourth. And I'm like, that's probably where we lost it. But our defense came up clutch, and then Monk was coming up huge. And that's when Fox after that really open midi that he missed, that's when he really got it going. He hit that runner. Then Monk and him went 4 for 4 from the free throw line. Wish we could have done that in overtime, but they went 4 for 4 from the free throw line at the end of the fourth there. And then Fox turning on the Jets against Giannis with a great finish to force overtime. And then he had it going in the fourth. Dame got fouled behind the 3-point line. I think he got fouled twice in the act of shooting, and then they called one on the ground. Whereas Fox shoots a free throw and gets hit on the arm, airballs it because he clearly got fouled, and then there's just no call. And again, that's why Mike Brown was getting so frustrated. The way that Fox is officiated, it's not the same as the other stars in this league. But the Bucks were missing their threes. They missed 2 open threes by, I believe it was Pat Connaughton and Malik Beasley. Giannis missed the midi. Monk hit a floater. Fox got a steal and a dunk. But then the Bucks responded with some threes. Kings turned the ball over a couple times. And that's when Huerter hit that big 3. Fox hit the midi. Monk hit the midi. And you're thinking, all right, we're getting out of here with a win for the first time in however many years. And that's obviously when the missed free throws and the clutch 3 by Brook Lopez and the, fade away or leaning to the left 3 by Lillard goes in. That was just a killer. But what are you going to do? It's just make your free throws. There's nothing else to it, which is why I don't feel like it kind of works both ways. It's why I don't feel that bad about this game, but then it's also why it stings so much, because it's as easy as you just hit a free throw and, hit a couple free throws and you win the game. Go 3 for 4 and you win the game. But also the Kings did everything to get into that position outside of hitting the free throws. And so there's nothing else that, needs to really be corrected in terms of how they played other than that. And it's wild what happens when you have a fourth starter that's contributing like Huerter did, and even a fifth in Barnes who's actually giving you something offensively, who knocks down 1-3 and is able to actually do something off the dribble and hit a few mid-rangers like we know, like he's proven he can in the past, that he just hasn't been doing this season. It's like if we can just get a little offensive production from Barnes and, a good amount from Huerter, obviously not necessarily like this, but just if we can just get 10 plus points from both of them on any given night, that's a recipe for success, because we know what Fox, Sabonis, and Monk can do, and hopefully Keegan is good and can bounce back from this hip injury quickly. But I haven't really talked about Sabonis other than on the defensive side of the ball, where I thought he did a pretty good job. But he almost had a double-double at the end of the first quarter. I think he had 8 assists and 7 points. I mean, that's about as close as you can come to a double-double playing 12 minutes, especially looking at, a double-double for points and assists. Maybe you can get the points and rebounds one a little easier in 12 minutes, but points and assists is kind of wild. And he ended with 21 points, 15 assists, 13 rebounds on 9 for 10 shooting. He went straight into a 3 with confidence, knocked that down. That's good to see. His free throws continued to look really good. He only shot 2, but they looked really good. And he just continues to be amazing. Obviously an off game in the last one against Philly, at least an off first half, but he bounced back in the second half of that Philly game, continued that into this game. And when Huerter is knocking down shots or when he's cutting and making plays, Sabonis is always going to find him. So if he's knocking him down, that's going to boost this offense so much. And right now we're right around average in terms of offensive rating. And so if Huerter can get back to himself, that will skyrocket, because not only will it just be the added points that Huerter's getting, but it just frees up so much for everyone else. Lyles came in, was productive, hit 3 for 7 from 3, rebounded the ball well, played solid defense, got matched up on Giannis a few times, and did the best he could. I thought one guy that had especially good help defense on Giannis was Kevin Huerter, because every time when Giannis was kind of sizing up to shoot that mid-range shot, that's obviously a shot we want him to take. But every time Huerter was always coming over to give a little bit of a contest from like the side or behind and just make it a little more uncomfortable for Giannis. So I thought that was a really good thing that he was doing. I think where the Kings roster flaws showed the most was probably just Bobby Portis going off. Just another type of player, just a big that can shoot, and that is, pretty mobile, a 4 that just went right at Barnes, and that's where we need someone better to be able to match up with him. But other than that, the Kings did a pretty good job of finding a way to minimize the effect of the Bucks' size advantage with Giannis and Brook Lopez. Defensively, just by playing together and constantly loading up against Giannis, trying to, rotate out and get contests on shooters like Malik Beasley and Dame. This was actually the first overtime game the Kings have lost this season. They now are 3-1 in the 4 games they've played. And obviously we had multiple big leads, like a 6-point lead is massive in overtime, it feels like. And it just feels like we have really good overtime players. Like Fox, we know he's clutch. Monk is a great overtime player. And the only time it really felt like we weren't playing well in overtime was when we were trying to feed bad passes into Domas and getting the ball batted away. Like there was that one play where Fox had Giannis on him, but he like rose up to take that midi and then he just threw it over to Domas. It's just like, why? Why? You're De'Aaron Fox. Take that mid-range shot. There's like 4 seconds on the shot clock. Take the shot. Domas he's going in, he's ready to get the rebound. Like that's the dynamic in overtime. It goes from Sabonis feeding others and having the ball in his hands to more the guards having the ball in their hands and just trying to get shots off of the Sabonis screens. And then Sabonis is going to do everything he can to go and get that offensive rebound if they miss. Monk had a lot of fun plays, especially in that second quarter when it just looked like he shot out of a cannon. And I was like, this is either going to be a highlight or it's going to end in a turnover. And I mean, it's a highlight to me, not like, the dunks we expect from him, but him just going so fast right to the rim and making a pretty tough layup. Like he never stopped going full speed and made the layup still, even if it was open because he blew by his defender. Like making a layup at that high of speed is really hard. And Monk, he's just been relentless in terms of attacking the rim. He tries to obviously get to the foul line as much as possible. He only turned it over once, 28 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds. And, obviously, if he just makes those 2 free throws in overtime, he'll be kicking himself for that. It's just our best free throw shooter. Like on a team of horrible free throw shooters, we get our best free throw shooter to the line and he's the one that misses both. It's killer. The Kings just had so much energy, moving the ball so well. They were playing with pace. They were connected defensively. It seemed like, they were locked into a game plan and they didn't wilt under the pressure of that Milwaukee run in the 4th. And even at the end of the 3rd, when Sabonis was out of the game, it felt like we just had to survive the end of the 3rd, start of the 4th. And I thought at the end of the 3rd, it could have been better, but we did enough to stay within 4 even with missing a lot of shots, not being able to get to the free throw line in that third. At the start of the fourth, it was Portis not being able to miss. Monk, even, before those two free throws he missed in overtime, he started this game 2 for 4 from the line. He was missing free throws before that. And then you had Barnes like airballing an open three. But they were able to fight back against a really good team in the Bucks. Time after time, we've talked about after those big blowout losses. Was this the worst loss of the season? Which one was the worst? Which loss? Was it against the Hornets, the Trailblazers, or was it just, one of the games against the Pelicans? Well, how about we talk about the best loss of the season? Because this loss of the season, it feels like there's the most positive things to take out of it, the most confidence going forward, and hopefully the most that we can build off of any loss. Hopefully what it's not is, I talked about after last game, that triangle where it's like big blowout loss leads to big response win to a couple decent wins back to big blowout loss. Hopefully this wasn't the big win that just, happened to be a loss, but big response, you know what I mean? We need to find some consistency off of this game. We can't just, have this be the big response and then maybe, win a couple games and then just get blown out again and again. I guess because it's been such a storyline, I got to mention, the Bucks were on the second night of a back-to-back, because we always talk about that when the Kings lose on the second night of a back-to-back. But they were resting Chris Middleton for rest because of that, but it's still the Bucks. So we're now 2-2 on this road trip, and I said coming in 3-2 road trip is pretty good. That's still on the table as we travel to Phoenix to close this out on Tuesday. As of recording this, Phoenix is beating the Trailblazers by 13 in the third quarter, but we've won both games against the Suns so far this year. One in Phoenix, 114-106, one at home, 120-105. Phoenix, finally, they got their big three playing, at least in this one against the Trailblazers that they're playing right now. But who knows who'll be playing when the Kings play them, because it feels like they can never keep all their guys out there. But obviously, if they do have all three of their guys, that is extremely dangerous. And the Kings are going to have to be just as connected defensively as they were against the Bucks to be able to slow down the Suns. If Keegan can't play in this game, that would be a big loss because we need him to be out there to defend, one of Booker or Durant. But I think what I'm really going to be looking for is just to see what the rotation is, because it may change, if Keegan is out or if he's in. But assuming he's in, do we keep going with an 8-man rotation or maybe go to a 9-man as opposed to a 10-man, 11-man rotation? Because I don't think playing in an 8-man rotation in the regular season is sustainable. But who knows? Maybe we just go with an 8-man until the trade deadline. And it's actually tomorrow, January 15th, is a big date in terms of trade season, because it's when a lot of guys become available, including Jeremy Grant, Kyle Kuzma, I believe. And the Trailblazers tonight, all of a sudden they're just sitting a bunch of guys that weren't on the injury report yesterday, including Jeremy Grant. And so they're going, Brogdon, I think. So they're going ultimate tank now, and guys are probably available for trade after tomorrow. So now I think is truly between now and the trade deadline is when things can happen, because I do think the Kings have a good 8-man rotation. Now that doesn't mean there aren't flaws with Huerter's inconsistency and with Barnes being Barnes right now, but it's a good 8-man. But we just need either an upgrade in the starting lineup in terms of talent and upgrade the top end, or we do need more depth to be able to have confidence going into a game against the Suns, where it's like, okay, we don't have Keegan Murray, but we have this guy that we could throw out against Booker, or we do have Keegan Murray, but we can put Keegan on Durant, and now we have this guy that we can throw against Booker, right? But anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back on Tuesday night to recap the game against the Phoenix Suns. So I'll see you guys then. Peace.